Hello, I am Mike Borislow, Executive Director of Massachusetts Youth Soccer Association. This update is being brought to you so that we can provide some additional information that has taken place or come about over the last 4 weeks. We figured it's about halfway through the normal season, and thus let's provide some added information. The first part of the video will cover certain topics of interest, and the second part will just be a recap of the game modifications. It's important to note and to remind everybody that all of the modifications that have been made were at the insistence of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the EEA overseeing youth and adult sports. In order for us to play, we need to modify play, and the primary part of the modifications is to limit contact, increase physical distancing, and the such. So what we've put into place with the game modifications, the face covering requirements, the gathering limits, we feel is supporting the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as much as possible. So there were some minimum standards that were put into place with the various updates that have come out from the EEA on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the overarching, most important aspects that we need to pay attention to is to eliminate deliberate contact and to minimize intermittent contact. And those are the reasons for the game modifications. So the topics I'll be covering are going to be facial coverings, COVID-19 team coordinator and team manager updates, exposure notification procedures, some more information about gathering limits, introduce the FAQ webpage that we have, and finally go over game modifications. Once again, the first 5 topics will be covered briefly and quickly, and then the game modifications thereafter. So if you want to stay for the whole video, that's great. But if you just want the updates, just make sure you capture and listen to the first 5 bullets. So facial coverings. On September 4th, we updated our facial coverings policy. And then we were asked to provide a little bit of clarity with regards to the way the policy was written. Thus, we've just, as of yesterday, updated the facial coverings. We will be updating our overall guidelines this week. Hopefully it comes out by the end of the week, which will basically just touch on 2 key things: the clarity on facial coverings and just supporting information and an update on gathering limits. And that's pretty much it. So facial coverings, Massachusetts Youth Soccer requires all players to wear face covering per the most EEA guidelines. Only face coverings that secure with loops around the player's ears are acceptable. Now, one of the additional steps we took on September 4th was to provide a little bit of clarity with regards to how Mass Youth Soccer is going to be adhering to the EEA requirements. Our policy is rather clear. Face coverings must be worn when a player steps onto the playing field. During play, when spacing is greater than 6 feet from another player, a mask break to catch their breath may be taken. The default expectation is that face coverings will be worn. Players are not to enter the field without a face mask covering their mouth and nose. They're not to play with the face mask or the face covering down around their chin or up over their head, or only covering their mouth or only covering their nose. It's supposed to be properly worn at all times when it comes to playing soccer on the field. Now, we have put some clarity out there that masks with exhalation valves or vents, including mesh masks, are not acceptable and should not be worn. In addition to when players are off the field, players must properly wear their face coverings at all times, when on the sidelines, in any team huddles, except when 6 or more feet from another player for a mask break, to catch their breath, drink, or eat. Now, questions have come up about adverse conditions. If conditions are so severe as to warrant masks too dangerous to wear, such as heavy downpour, torrential rain where the masks are just sodden and soaking, the competition must be delayed, postponed, or canceled. The option is not to have the players wear without masks. Not acceptable. And coaches, staff, referees, and other officials are required to wear facial coverings and maintain a social distance of 6 feet from players, coaches, spectators, and other personnel at all times. Another update that just recently came out had to do with our COVID-19 team coordinators and team managers. We understand that to have a team coordinator step forward, volunteer to take on the role, that some of them felt it was an additional burden for them to have to go through all of the compliance necessities that a coach must go through, or a board member, or somebody who will be working with children. So we simplified the rules. Those serving in these roles must complete an annual Mass Youth Soccer adult registration and be listed under their organization with an approved risk status. So we will only do a background check, both on the state Mass CORI as well as the national background check, but the safe sport training is not required, nor is the CDC concussion training required. An adult credential is not required for team coordinators or team managers as long as the adult in this role is not on the field of play or on the bench sideline. If they perform other duties requiring them to be involved with players, then yes, they must complete the entire adult registration and educational requirements to receive their credential. On our website, on the right-hand side of the Massachusetts Safe Soccer Return to Soccer Activities webpage is a menu for COVID exposure notification procedures. Unfortunately, some of these procedures have been put into action in various parts of the state. Fortunately, the number of positive exposures and positive cases that we are dealing with is less than one half of 1%. Everybody's following the guidelines, doing their job, and we really appreciate that. But in the event that your organization does have a positive test result, go to this webpage, look at the procedures that we have listed here, download them, open them up, and please follow them. For those organizations that have followed these, they are doing everything correct. The boards of health have even complimented them on the procedures that we have in place. And so it's just very important that you are familiar with the procedures to take care of this situation of what if we have a positive tested exposure. Let's cover gathering limits again. The Mass Youth Soccer policy is rather clear. 1 spectator per player. That's it. Now, spectators are a parent, a legal guardian, or a chaperone over the age of 18 that is there with the child. All spectators, of course, must follow all Mass Youth Soccer Return to Soccer activity guidelines. 6-foot distancing, masks on at all times. If a player's parent or legal guardian is present as a coach for their team, another spectator is permitted to be present for this player. We have a lot of coaches, male and female, that coach their sons and daughters. And if they were to be the only spectator permitted, the other parent or guardian or partner would never be able to watch them play. So we felt it was important to give the others in that house an opportunity to play if we're dealing with a coach who's also a parent. In addition, it's a little bit of a thank you for the coach to be out there coaching, thus the other parent is permitted, but it's only one spectator per player because coaches are not counted in the spectator numbers. Now, there is an exception, is that we do have some spectators who's responsible for other minors either in the household or under their care, and they're not able to have them cared for by others. So they're permitted to have that other minor with them or other minors with them, as long as they stay with that spectator and do not roam around and do not freely walk the premises. They all have to stay together at all times on the sideline. Now, the question has come up is, do the recent changes, orders 51 and 52 that just came out last week from the governor, have an impact on spectator limits? Mass Youth Soccer has not modified our current limits of one spectator per player. We do know that in certain areas, numbers can be increased from 50 to 100. In some areas, they may not. So the primary reason that we are staying with the one spectator per player is that we are pretty much strong and steadfast in our support of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the EEA's commitment to limiting gathering sizes across the state to help reduce the opportunity of COVID-19 spreading, as well as helping to manage the tracing process. We have been complimented by our friends at the EEA. They appreciate the position that we are taking, as well as some of the other soccer organizations in the state are also taking. And they are very appreciative that we are working towards helping to do our part to manage and limit the spread. Another reason is that managing the ability for lower risk communities to have increased gathering sizes for soccer activities will be challenging. We have some communities as of this week that were considered lower risk, which would have been yellow, green, or white. And then we had, within a week, they changed to red. And then they may go back after a 3-week period to yellow or green. So in order to maintain a sense of consistency, we've decided to stay with the one spectator per player gathering limit. Another reason is that in order for any lower risk community, based on the orders 51 and 52 that came out, to increase their gathering sizes, they need to go to their local Board of Health with a plan of how they're going to manage the process and ask permission. This process may take time, as well as many boards of health across the state have expressed desires not to go to the increased gathering sizes. For example, Boston is not going to the increased sizes. Somerville is not going to increase sizes, and many other cities and towns have decided not to. We felt that by keeping to our one-to-one limit also further supports the local boards of health, as well as eliminates the need for additional workload during these stressful times. So our gathering limits are still one spectator per player. Another new piece of information is an FAQ, a frequently asked question page on our website. If you go to the Return to Soccer Activities webpage, on the right-hand side, you'll see Return to Play documents at the very top on the right, and listed about fourth down is the FAQ. So we invite you to take a look at this. Some of the questions may be some that you have had or have asked in the past, and the answers will be there, and we will update this as frequently as possible. So that's pretty much it for the key topics for folks that may have been interested in the face coverings, the gathering limits, FAQs, exposure information, and the such. For those of you that want to stick around, I'm just going to quickly go through the game modifications that have been in place since September 4th. We have not made any modifications as of yet to the September 4th game mods. So the modifications have to deal with in-game play of heading, permissible body contact, slide tackles, and then restarts, throw-ins, corner kicks, free and indirect free kicks, and drop balls. All of this is found on the Mass Youth Soccer website on that right-hand side under the documents. There is a one-pager that, or one or two-pager, I should say, that goes through the game modifications only. So that's a nice piece to have. Plus, it's included in the guidelines. Player behavior. We need coaches to work with our players to break them of bad habits. We've been out watching games, and we're glad to say that spitting and nose clearing on the field or spitting on goalie gloves during practices and competitions is not taking place. Let's continue that, and let's support the proper behavior with our players. Coin tosses have been currently suspended, and they're basically giving the choice to the away team if they want to kick off or defer to the second half. As we all know, heading and any intentional heading of a soccer ball is suspended for all ages. And if a player does attempt to head the ball and or does actually head the ball, it will be treated as a dangerous, playing in a dangerous manner and result in an indirect free kick. Now you have to remember that if the same player consistently attempts or does head the ball, consistently violates this current suspension, they could actually be called for a yellow card for persistent infringement. So it's going to be treated as playing in a dangerous manner. Shoulder-to-shoulder contact is suspended, and any other intentional physical contact is once again playing in a dangerous manner, or it could be another applicable foul or misconduct based on the referee's decision. So there could be an shoulder-to-shoulder contact that the referee blows the whistle, calls for an indirect free kick on the against the offending player. But if the same player going shoulder-to-shoulder at the same time punched, hit, grabbed the opposing player, then it could be elevated to another foul or misconduct other than playing in a dangerous manner. Contact, intentional body contact will include shoulder-to-shoulder contact, backing into a player, pulling on an opponent's shirt, shorts, or masks. This form of contact will not be tolerated and will result in the appropriate foul or misconduct. Slide tackling. The use of slide tackling is suspended and is to be considered playing in a dangerous manner. Indirect free kick, restart. Or if it's a dangerous slide tackle, cleats up, they kick the player, or they comes in from behind, it could be another foul or misconduct other than playing in a dangerous manner. Now, a slide tackle is tackling the ball or an attempt to tackle the ball from another player. That is different than going to the ground. Going to the ground to save a ball from going out of touch or to stop a long ground pass is not considered a tackle and is permissible as long as no other players are within 6 feet. So even if a player does go to ground to attempt to get a ball 3 or 4 feet away from another player, they will be called for playing in a dangerous manner. We just consider that to be way too close to another player for that kind of a maneuver to be attempted. Restarts. So at any time a ball is to be placed for a restart, the ball should not be touched with a player or official's hands. Any player that is touched by somebody else must be removed to be sanitized. This also includes a spectator. Sometimes the ball will roll out of touch and a spectator will grab it and put it into play. We have to be cognizant of that, be aware of that, and have the ball removed and replaced by another sanitized ball. And that ball must be sanitized. The best thing is to use our feet to place the ball where it belongs. For all restarts, all players must comply with the 6-foot distancing from both teammates and opponents. Opponents must remain at 10 yards away on kicks, indirect and free kicks, or 8 yards for small-sided. That is the laws of the game, but they must be 6 feet away from others. This also eliminates the use of a traditional defensive wall. That's been suspended while we're in this COVID-19 period. Questions often come up as well. Who has the right to a spot? It's basically whoever was there first, and the referee will just have to wait for everybody to have their 6 feet of distance before restarting. However, we are not taking away the use of a quick restart. If a player does have a ball down and everybody's in their proper positions, they're more than 6 feet away, and they want to do a quick restart, the referee can permit that. Throw-ins are suspended, as we know, and when the ball crosses the touchline, the restart will be an indirect free kick from the spot on the touchline where the ball went out of play. So at that point, it's no longer a throw-in or has anything to do with the throw-in. It is the indirect free kick laws of the game procedures. And one change we did make on September 4th is that kicks into the penalty area are permissible. Little point of clarification for those of you that are coaching kids that are playing high school. High school does have a different set of rules when it comes to restarts, throw-ins, corner kicks, and the such. Let's not confuse them. So an indirect free kick for USSF play is a typical and normal indirect free kick under the laws of the game. And an indirect free kick replaces a throw-in as well as replaces a corner kick. Now, similar to a corner kick, the ball must be placed in the corner area nearest to the point where the ball passed over the goal line. The restart will be an indirect free kick as just described. And again, kicks may go into the penalty area. This change was made knowing that when the indirect free kick is taken from the corner, all players must be 6 feet away from each other on that restart. Thus, the congregating, the scrums, the compactness of players will not be present at the time the ball is kicked. Thus, the proximity and the chance of particulate spread has been dramatically reduced by maintaining these distances on restarts. So an indirect free kick now replaces throw-ins and corner kicks. It's all the normal applicable procedures for an indirect free kick under Law 13. And yes, all offside infractions, Law 11, will apply to indirect free kicks as they normally do under the normal laws of the game. And if a player is deemed by the referee to be in an offside position and becomes involved in active play, the referee may call an offside infraction. Drop ball has been suspended, and the procedure is to give the ball with an indirect free kick to the team who the referee deemed to be in possession when the referee stopped play for a dropped ball restart. Some other modifications may come along, but we think we can get through the season without them. It all depends on what the EEAS has to do. It's important to note that modifications, excuse me, apply to practices and games. There's no different rules for practices. You can't head a ball in practice. You can't shoulder to shoulder in practice. The modifications apply to practices and games. And once again, they may be made stricter by local boards of health or member organizations. They may want to take a little stricter approach by eliminating certain actions or activities that take place in the game. So far this year, after 4 weeks of play and then testing these out in the summer, what we have noticed is the players get it. They quickly assimilate, they acclimatize, they understand, and they play on. Unfortunately, it's us parents and coaches and such that are a little, concerned that this is not the game that we know it, and it's not pure soccer. But folks, our kids can play. They love being out there. Let's make sure they play the way they're supposed to. Let's stay within the modification guidelines. Let's follow everything we're supposed to do. And we should be okay for the rest of the season, and hopefully through the wintertime and into the spring, it brings on a whole new, much better atmosphere for our soccer activities. So I'd like to thank everybody who has watched this. We'd like to thank those who communicate with us, post your questions. Please have them come in. We get common questions. We'll put them in the FAQs, but we are all here to help you throughout the entire process. All of our contact information is on the Return to Soccer Activities webpage. And let's just pray for everybody's health, well-being, and safety. And thank you for everything that you do to provide our children with this incredible opportunity. Keep up the great work. Thanks.